Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Clayton Cosgrove.
Mr. Speaker, can I state from the outset that the Labor Party will support this bill to first reading? And can I say that, as a basic principle, we welcome the Minister's sort of innovative attitude in respect of New Zealand business. What we seek is that in any trade agreement, that the rules of a trade agreement are enforced on all borders, likewise on our own borders. So we understand the anti-dumping regulations, we understand the importance of New Zealand business, and we understand the enforcement of those rules around our domestic borders. So we welcome the public interest test. There has been a lot of conjecture in respect of trade agreements per se. There has been a lot of debate, I think, around the in recent times, in respect of the positive nature or otherwise of trade agreements. And what a number of manufacturers have sought over a long period of time, despite governments, is that we enforce the rules of the day as our Australian and other counterparts do. So in essence, we support this legislation. We want to scrutinise it appropriately in terms of its balance between the New Zealand interest and those of our economic partners. We welcome the fact that it will go to the Commerce Select Committee, and to be fair, I do pay tribute to the Chair of the Select Committee. I'm not a member of the Commerce Select Committee, but in fairness, and to be fair in this great chamber, Melissa Lee does preside a balanced approach to Select Committee hearings and does give all parties a fair go. This has not always been the case, sir, as you may, as a learned and long-serving member of the Parliament, may acknowledge, in respect of the Commerce Select Committee. The public interest test, we think, is imperative in terms of, if it is appropriate to enact these provisions, then there needs to be a public interest test. And I acknowledge the Commerce Minister, who is grappling with a whole series of issues, whether they be ports, whether they be patents. There are a whole series of interwoven issues that he is dealing with. And what we seek and what we would support is a Commerce Minister that would support the public interest. And I take the Minister at his word that in introducing this piece of legislation, he is determined to support New Zealand industry, to support the New Zealand public interest, and to ensure that we are internationally competitive with our trading partners. It would be a dark day, sir, if New Zealand industry was somehow hampered and somehow hobbled behind other industries in foreign competitive markets and hampered in the respect of their export earnings. So, sir, in the brief commentary that I wish to give, because I don't think there is a major conjecture about this issue and about this legislation, I wish to say that we will support it to Select Committee. We want to ensure that it gives the appropriate scrutiny and the appropriate tests are put in place. It does introduce a public interest test, and we know that in terms of, for instance, construction products, if we look at those in respect of the housing issue, that there is a lot of conjecture in respect of the competitive nature of those products. I'm told that you can land, for instance, a container of jib out of the United States for about 2/3 of the cost than you can produce it locally. One could make an anti-dumping or dumping argument in respect of that. Pardon? No, I would always argue there is a consumer benefit. My colleague, the trade spokesperson, makes an interesting point. But what New Zealanders want to know is that there is a level playing field if you're in business, if you're producing goods and services, and you're in an international trading market under WTO rules, that there is a level playing field. So I welcome the Minister's comments. I look forward, in respect of the Select Committee, of scrutinising those comments in the legislation, because what we want and what New Zealand manufacturers and producers want, they do not want a free lunch. They want to be competitive. They want to be out there on the international stage. They do not want government provision They simply want to compete with their international markets, and they want to compete within the rules of the WTO. And so, sir, if this legislation, its intent is positive, we want to see the detail, but that being the case, sir, we support the legislation, we want to see it progress, but we want to give it due scrutiny, and we want to also, of course, scrutinise the Minister's intent. So over patents legislation, ports legislation, all these issues, we acknowledge that the Minister, of course, has New Zealand's interest at heart, and we want to ensure that that is communicated and that is legislated through this legislation, sir. So we support this bill to Select Committee.
I call